Hello there, Margarita here, and welcome to the Rise Up with Margarita show. It is my weekly Monday 2 p.m. show where I am really sharing with those empowered light workers who are really stepping up in the world in the middle of the planetary awakening to really help them claim their power and really shift the paradigm of power in the world. So glad to have you here. And so every Monday at 2 p.m., I do have a new topic. And so today's topic is called How to Be a Barrier Breaker for Your Lineage as a Lightworker. So this is such an important topic. And so first of all, I just really wanted to share, this has been a while since I had my weekly live. I usually have it every Monday. A few weeks ago, as many of you know, my father had passed. And so I went to be with family for about 2.5 weeks, no, a little more than 2 weeks. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all the beautiful messages, first of all, because I really appreciated that. And so did my family as well. And it really inspired me to really connect with those aspects that I learned, the wisdom that I learned through being with family during that time. And so one of those pieces was what created this topic. And so this topic about being a barrier breaker in your lineage as a light worker, very, very important. Me personally, it's something that I was already delving into maybe 20, 30 years ago, and that's when the meat of it had resolved. But there's always new levels and deeper, new levels of and planes to address these beautiful things, right? So it's so important to really connect with what you're here to create in the world as a light worker, because it's not where, we're here to be passive. I've heard a lot of light workers say this, oh, well, we all know how this ends, the light wins, and so we can just lay back on our laurels and just watch it happen, right? Well, the reality is that light workers are here. You are here to really step up. You guys are really here to step up, to apply yourself, to take action, really. And so that's a big reason why I show up on these lives. So today's topic is how to be a barrier breaker for your lineage as a light worker. So today I'm going to cover what being a barrier breaker for your lineage means, why light workers right now are choosing to break these barriers for their lineage because it's a choice and it doesn't just happen to you or it doesn't just spontaneously show up without your permission, right? So I'm going to go into that, and then also some ways to identify if you are stepping into that role, as well as some tips on how to break these barriers. And so I know some of you are here from the post I did yesterday that was all about being a lone wolf. That too was a very pretty popular reel. And so there's some similar like crossover in terms of how you might approach this, because it's really about breaking through and busting through these blocks that are, holding you back, really. So it's so important. And I love this comment I'm seeing here. We are leaders of the new earth. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and so welcome to all of you who are popping in here. So glad to see you here. And I'm going to just shift this over here so I can see some comments, because I am doing a simulcast on both Instagram and Facebook. So as I was mentioning before, one of the reasons why this was an important topic is because it's something that I learned even more when I was with my family in the past couple of weeks. And this is really a time where we get to deepen. We get to deepen our power, our light, deepen our love, our mastery in our lives and what we're creating in the world. So really, really important to note. So what being a barrier breaker for your lineage means. This is what it means, okay? So that the pain and suffering your family, your ancestors, your lineage has been enduring ends with you. So this is something you might be seeing a lot on social media. I know I have, and actually I was working on this stuff way before Like honestly, social media became a thing. And so, I've been doing this thing for a while. And so, because there was a lot of stuff that I got to break and clear for my family. And so, if you really kind of feel like you resonate with what I just said, being that the pain and the suffering of your lineage ends with you, that's a really, really powerful undertaking. And I'm going to share with you also why light workers right now are choosing to break these barriers for their lineage, because I'm getting right into it, right? Because this is such a juicy, juicy topic. And I also have a lot of tips on how to break them too. So that's why I want to get to those and really serve up to you. And I will take some questions towards the end. So that's my recommendation, is to really hold your questions for the end there. So, when lightworkers truly rise up into their power, one of the things they do is not only provide deep healing to themselves and to the world, but also to their families. And so this is something where, when you're a light worker, you're not just like, because, and let me just clear something up here too, because some people think you're a light worker because you just mean well for people or because you're a nice person, right? And being a light worker is a lot more than just being a nice person, okay? A light worker is someone who carries a high light quotient within their body, within their system, and their mission is to really up level, share that gift of light. Usually they have a lot of really highly attuned sensitivities and intuition and abilities. And they use all this powerful ability, powerful light through their work, right? And they really show up in service. And that's really their desire, their mission is to show up in service, to be this light bearer, especially where there is no light, right? So that's why there are a lot of light workers showing up, awakening right now. A lot of people, DMing me, putting in the comments that they're basically new on this path. And that's because a lot of light workers are now starting to awaken. Me, I've been on this path for a while now. And even before then, I've been here for over 2 billion years now. So I've had some practice. But wherever you're at the beginning, at the middle, more advanced, wherever you're at, there's always new layers, new levels of deepening your power. And one of those ways is to really break those barriers. So just to get it back to that point, when light workers truly rise up into their power, one of the things is to provide deep healing to themselves and the world, and also to their lineage. And also, another reason is because we are in the middle of a planetary awakening. And so this desire to deeply heal on a greater level is increasing right now. And if you were on my IG stories over the weekend, I, spoke a little bit into the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's basically like Gaia's heartbeat. It is, kind of measured, and it literally shows up as a graph. And so in the past couple of years, it's just been increasing and increasing and increasing. There's all these beautiful cosmic galactic waves of energy that are streaming into the planet, providing upgrades. We are also receiving the Schumann resonance coming up from Gaia, which is also creating a massive ascension and awakening. And there's also the ascension sun codes that come in from Solaris. So this is so important to really make note of, right? Is that we are receiving this on so many levels, and that's why it's really, there's a reason. So if you're feeling that desire, that pull, that is also part of it, because we are in the middle of this planetary awakening, and like literally it is becoming this pull within ourselves, if you're a light worker in service, to really show up and heal that, right? So that's why. So those are some of the reasons. So here are some ways to identify if you are stepping into that role. So one, you are strongly intuitive, a healer, or you just feel deep in your gut that you are being called to heal patterns that have negatively impacted your family over many years. And I'm not just talking about this generation. I'm talking about lifetimes, generations, all the way back to the original, right? Like for you. So this, this is why it might pop up for you, and how you can identify with that is that, usually if you're a healer, it's already something that's in your energy field. You're already wanting to do that. Also, another way you can identify this is you notice that many people in your family, especially spanning over generations, are suffering in similar ways, such as through addiction, destructive patterns, certain diseases or disorders. Yes, that propensity can be inherited, not just genetically in terms of on a physical level, but also energetically. A lot of these, and this is the work that I've learned as a licensed acupuncturist, a Reiki master teacher, a medicine woman initiated in my Toltec tradition, is that there are a lot of things passed down, traumas passed down that interact with our energy fields and also, literally become a physical issue, right? So that's something that can pop up also. And to add to that, you actually want to do something about it, or bring healing to it in some way so it doesn't continue with future generations. So that's some of the ways that you can kind of identify if you're stepping into that role. So just kind of connect with yourself right now. Like, does that sound like you? Does that sound like something you're feeling pulled to? And, and if you are, and if you just have a feeling like, okay, maybe, I'm feeling that calling, then you probably are, And so is this resonating for people? I'm just tapping in here and just checking out some of the comments. Okay. All right. Thanks for the hearts, loves. Thank you. Thank you. So it sounds like you're clear on that, and maybe you are identifying as a barrier breaker. And for those of you who are like, I'm not here to do that work, and and there was even one person on one of the comments on that very popular reel that I did a few days ago that was about breaking barriers in your lineage. It was triggering for some people. Like, most people were like, yeah, I get it, I totally resonate. But some people were, a little triggered by it. This whole thing of, why is it my responsibility? And, I don't want to do this and all this stuff, right? But the reality is, if you've connected to me, if you are even leaving comments on my reels, and wherever, right? And even if you're here, usually there's something there. Usually it's not coincidence. And when you're really tapped into your frequency as a light worker, as a bearer of light, in service to humanity right now in the middle of the planetary awakening, I should say, then it's really not coincidence. It really, really isn't. So, okay. So now I'm going to talk about some tips on how to break them. So if you're just tapping in right now, and Lucy's saying that, yes, I feel that, but not sure how. Yeah, I'm going to get into the how, Lucy. Thank you so much. So what I covered was a little bit of, my experience with breaking barriers in my own lineage, how I got to do that in an even deeper way in the past couple of weeks, being with my family. And then also why Lightworkers are being called forward to break these barriers, and also how you can identify that. And now some tips on how to break them. Okay, so if any of these resonate for you, you can do your raise your hand emoticon, or, say, yes, that's me, or whatever. But I'm going to share with you some tips on how to break them. Okay. And this is not the be all end all, to die for list, right? There's always more ways to approach this thing. So, but I do know that this works. Okay. So before setting out, number one, do the work. To do your work for your family, to empower them, you must first be empowered in yourself. So in other words, and part of the reason is because it's a big deal. Okay, so because when you're saying, yes, this is what I want to do for my family, for my lineage, like, you can't be a hot ass mess when you're like approaching this work, right? Like, because then you're just going to get like pulled off center really fast, really easily, and then you're taken down like in 5 seconds. So that's why I'm sharing, you must first do this work within yourself. Do this work within your heart, do this work within your body. I'm going to share a little bit more about that, but that was like the number one thing I wanted to share with you first, is that you must first work on your own empowerment, work on your own inner self, make sure you're good, right? So really, this is about completely, and I mean completely, like no, except for such and such, like caveats, right? I mean completely loving yourself and accepting yourself, deeply flaws and all, choosing you. Okay. And the reason why that's so important is because, and I'll just say it, right? I've mentioned it in some of my posts, but it's also worth repeating is that anywhere where you've got fear, hatred, rage, anger, these are weaknesses, okay? Fear is actually weakness. It feels powerful to be angry. It feels powerful to be rageful. It feels powerful. Like, get it? I get it. I know I was in punk rock, okay? In the middle of New York City. So I get rage. And that's not real power. That's not true power, okay? So don't get caught up in the false sense of how that feels for you of like, well, I'm in my power, I'm all raged and, pissed off, right? And it's like, well, underneath that kind of rage and anger is sorrow, is sadness, is pain. Okay? That is what you need to get into. That is what you get to heal and really connect with that, and really release your attachment to that fear, release your attachment to the trauma that whatever you've identified with up until this point, because it will not serve you. It's going to block you from your intuition, block you from your power, block you from love. Okay, so just giving it to you straight. So important. Zachary, hello Zachary. He's saying rage is pressure and pressure is caused by fear and the misperception of separation. Ooh! One thing that I know about you guys here is that you like, and maybe it's because you can't write a very long thing in the comments section, but a lot of these things you could put on bumper stickers and just like drive around with and educate the masses, okay? Okay. Yes. So that was number one. All right. So be empowered in yourself, meaning that really go into that complete deep love for yourself, complete acceptance of yourself. Like, and this is going to be highly triggering, I know, for some of you light workers, right? Who are like, but it's not safe for me to be in my power, but it's not safe for me to be like totally in my woo. It is. It is. It just is. Okay. You're not being burned at the stake anymore. And I get it. I was there, been there, done that. Okay. Like all these past life things, that's part of what you get to heal. That's part of what you get to heal. So you get to accept all of your intuitive abilities, your powers. And I mean your true power, not the old paradigm power of manipulation and greed and blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about your true power that you get from God. Okay. That's the true power that you possess. So really accept it, embrace it, love it up, and then love yourself up, right? Deeply and completely. So that was number one. And part of this is also going to require a mindset shift from you, which is going to be about seeing everything as love, which I know is going to be another highly triggering thing for me to say to you because, not, I was about to say not all families are perfect, but I would venture to say that all families have their thing. Okay. All families have their stuff going on. And so if you see a family and you're like, oh, that's so perfect, that's amazing. And they may have that on some level, but no family is perfect, right? So keep that in mind. So that said, see everything as love. And this is not about spiritually bypassing and pretending that you don't see the trauma and the suffering and all that stuff. That is spiritual bypassing and that is bullshit. Okay? What I'm talking about is shifting your perception of seeing how everything is happening for you, not at you, not to you, not against you, right? Because that is when you're feeling that way, when you're feeling like, oh, this is happening to me and the universe hates me and people hate me and all that, that is victim mentality. That is not going to serve you. That is going to block you. And also you're robbing yourself of the ability to receive love. Okay. And so Zachary is saying, love is in the pain. So good, so good. And true, and true. So really see how all of this is for you. And again, not from a place of spiritually bypassing and pretending like trauma or suffering doesn't exist. It is about transforming what it's about. Okay. All right. And then number 2, release your attachment to trauma and heal it. So I know this sounds easier said than done, but it does begin with a decision. It begins with a decision of, I decide to release my attachment to trauma now. It could simply be that simple. And the reason why is because your words carry meaning, also your thoughts, and of course your actions. But when you are not making that decision, nothing happens, right? I even saw this one comment on Instagram recently on one of my posts saying, well, I'll do all of this in divine timing. I will speak my truth in divine timing. And that is such a cop-out. I'll just say that is really a cop-out, because many light workers will use that as an excuse to be in resistance towards their power. They will use waiting for divine timing to be an excuse to step into their power. And then they won't. Because one thing I've noticed is that you will actually, and as you can hear, I'm right in the middle of New York City, right? And as you know, that when you shift your trauma, you actually shift everything. And that's really kind of the point of what I was just about to say, right? Is just like really releasing your attachment to trauma, because when you're attached to it and you're, really connected to it and you're identified with it, like, oh, I'm traumatized by this experience, right? And you can say that for a certain level of time. And then there comes a time when that expires, right? And then you like put your big girl pants on and then you address it, right? You go into that. And so that was one thing that, I got a comment on, was saying, that happens in divine timing, when the reality is, in my experience, divine timing, waiting for it, that usually doesn't work. What does work is deciding when the time is right, because it's not part of, just kind of like saying, okay, I'm just going to leave it up to a force outside of me about me being in my power, right? Because that's basically what you're saying. But when you're really in your power, you are making decisions of the experience you want to be having in your life. So this is part of why I mentioned number 2, releasing your attachment to trauma. So it begins with making a decision to release your attachment to it. And then also starting with an inquiry of what you're holding on to and why. And just like literally exploring it. Just, get curious about it. Just explore it. You might notice that maybe you have a certain, like, if your chest is feeling like compressed on a regular basis, usually there's some heart chakra thing going there. In my experience, it's not usually like an actual physical heart issue unless that's something known to you. Usually there's some disconnect you're having, right? And so you might notice like where in your body you're holding these things. And, then finding out, okay, why is that there? What am I holding there? And then as you start to get familiar, you might start to either remember some things, you might start to understand some things, and then allow yourself to just have this inner inquiry about it. That's how you begin. Yeah, someone is mentioning trauma expiration, never thought it was possible. Yep. And that comes from you. That comes also from a decision, because it's either you can like continue on and on until the end of time being in your trauma. I wouldn't recommend it. Although I know some people who have kind of taken it that way, right? Or you can just simply make a decision to be done with it. Be done with it. Be done with hanging on to all the stuff that's blocking you, right? So that was number 2, release your attachment to trauma and start healing it. Number 3, set the intention to heal your family trauma. So I have a word of caution here. So the word of caution is healing your ancestral pain is not for the faint-hearted. If you're expecting to like pick daisies and have like rainbows, like, you know, following you around as you do this ancestral trauma work, good luck with that, okay? Because it is something that it takes a certain wherewithal and a certain level of commitment in order to stick with it. Sometimes it's something that can clear pretty quickly if you're extremely present with yourself and you've done a lot of that inner work. And also sometimes it's just the way it is. Sometimes it takes a little longer, depending. Sometimes it's, based on certain family members, right? Certain family members, they're starting to get on board, or maybe they won't be. And, there's all these factors. Okay. I love this. One Love Angie is saying, expiration date for my trauma 2/7/2022. Woo! I love that. Can you feel that? Can you feel that statement? Because when you actually, because you can actually put an expiration date, or you can say, okay, by the end of such and such month, that kind of thing. But when you actually put an expiration date on it, you're energetically shifting that frequency of your own timeline, because you have a timeline that you're actually operating from, and you can choose to either have you can either choose to function from the primary timeline, as it's called, which is really connected to your truth and your light and your power, or you can work your life from the tertiary timelines, which is very much connected to your fears and what you don't want to have happen and everything you're afraid of, right? And when you function from that timeline, you create, guess what? More fear, right? More fear, more suffering. But when you kind of operate from that higher primary timeline, not to say you're going to feel awesome 100% of the time, because that's not what I'm saying, but you're operating from that higher frequency, which means you're then creating from a higher frequency, which means then you're creating a higher existence for yourself, right? And One Love Angie also continues to say, I'm done holding on to what's blocking me. And then I see a question here. How do I know if the trauma is done? As I said, you decide when it's done. And it can be today. And you can just simply say it. And then really truly say, okay, I'm in my heart, I'm committing to that. And it's not to say it's going to be a perfect experience, right? There will be moments where you're going to be like ebbing and flowing, and sometimes you think you're going to be like regressing a little bit. You're not. It's just part of the natural flow, okay? So just putting that out there. Yeah, and Zachary's saying it takes complete personal responsibility for sure. Absolutely. Okay. So that is my word of caution. If you're going to set the intention to heal your family trauma, make sure that you're committing to it, okay? Because your resilience will be tested. Sometimes during the healing, rifts within the fabric of what you know can shift, meaning like within your family lineage, certain relationships can shift. And, sometimes you will start questioning your own belief systems. You might question things that you thought was always true. So there might be some heartbreak there, very important. And so explore your shadow selves in particular, which holds much wisdom, as you know. And number 4, get healing assistance. So there's many ways to assist in your healing, right? There are many different ways, many different modalities, many different types of practitioners. So receive guidance and healing from trusted and researched spiritual healers, shamans, medicine people, other healers in service, to point you in the right direction. Because oftentimes when dealing with family trauma, there may be energetic implants that may have passed down to you that may need to be removed, if this practitioner is skilled. So one thing that I just wanted to share around that is, the deeper work that I do, it's for those who are no longer triggered and, in this big mire of unhealed trauma, right? Like they've already done the inner work. They're connected with their purpose and their heart and all that juiciness. And if it serves my client, I will do the deeper trauma work, because that's something that I've done with some of my clients, because, it's come up, sometimes for my clients, even though they've done a lot of inner work, there's usually some kind of like little layer that just starts getting, peeled open, and you're like, oh, so that's there, right? And so that's when we go in. And the thing with my work, the reason why I only work with those who've already done the inner work is because it really activates you on the DNA level. It's very powerful. It really will actually change your biochemistry and will also change your energetic field pretty quickly. So you gotta have done some inner work for that kind of stuff to anchor in. So that's so important. And so that said, I can do that if you've already done your inner work, and you do want to ascend into that next level of your being, whatever that looks like for you. But really, just look for some healer in a modality that resonates for you, and just reach out to them so that you can get the support. So that's very, very important. So number 5, create space for healing. So a lot of times when you're working with the lineage, you want to make sure you have some kind of altar situation. Okay, so it can be very simple. And when I say simple, it could just simply be like a picture of a loved one, maybe beside a candle or beside a crystal, and you make it a point that it's in a very special place, and you put it in a place where, you direct your energy of love there, or like you light a candle, during the day, or, whatever is meaningful to you, right? It could be just very simple like that, or it can be something, more developed. For me here, like I've just had an altar for such a long time that it's more kind of like building building upon the previous incarnation of that altar. So for me personally, I have like photos of ancestors, very special crystals, special amulets, statues for me, I have one of Kuan Yin because she was one of the first ascended beings that I worked with when I opened up into my awakened spiritual path. Crystals, I've got like, I'm looking over here because my altar is over here. I have like a little bowl of water as an offering, and sometimes when, like depending on the season, I might put like a little offering of like a squash for autumn, or, a pine cone during winter, or, something like that, right? So it's whatever feels sacred to you. And I always have candles there too. Very, very important. So create and maintain an altar of sacred objects, crystals, stones, amulets, herbs, offerings, and photos of those who have passed before you. Not only does it honor your ancestors, but it also creates a sacred space to ask for guidance on next steps, and also create a daily ritual that reinforces that intention to heal your ancestral line. So this could just really, again, be very simple. Maybe it's just a quick prayer, a quick sentence, a statement, a declaration, an invocation, an affirmation, or just an intention, right? Like that's all it needs. And also explore your ways of ancestral expression. So I know that when I first started going into that, I really went deep into all the ancestral stuff, right? And because I'm multiracial, there was a lot of stuff to explore. And so that was really delicious. But yeah, I got into all of that. I got into all of the shamanic indigenous practices of, my lineages and all that stuff. And you can explore that too, because then that'll also connect you much more deeply. And ask for reinforcements from your team of light. So everyone has a team of light. You have one. So your team of light is made up of your guides, your ancestors of light, your galactics of light, your angelic light beings, the elementals of light, all of that stuff. So all of that is really, really important to really acknowledge and call forward. Be also grateful for all the blessings you have. Thank them as well for helping you out. And to ask them for help, because that's how they really get engaged, because they're not going to overstep on your free will, right? So you need to ask for help when you want it. And that's just like in general in life, but also, yes, for your team of light. And then the last one, number 6, honor and express gratitude to your ancestors. I touched on this a little bit previously. This is where you get to really just honor and express the gratitude for paving the way for you, right? And of course, not all of our ancestors were perfect, but you get to just express thankfulness, gratitude for paving the way, right? So, so important. Okay. Eva, hello. She says, that is so powerful to know how quickly we can choose to heal our family trauma. I choose is about owning my sovereignty. Yes, absolutely. And so I'm just going to reiterate, like I said, some questions coming in now, so which is awesome. And I'm going to answer some of them in a moment, but I'm just going to recap what I just covered, right? Because I just covered a whole bundle of stuff. So some tips on how to break these barriers as a light worker for your lineage. So to recap, number one, before setting out to do your work for your family to empower them, first be empowered in yourself. So do that inner work, love and accept yourself completely and deeply, flaws and all, choose you. Number two, release your attachment to trauma and heal it, starting with inquiry. Number three, set the intention to heal your family trauma, knowing that that will be a commitment, right? And it can be like maybe a low level commitment to an intense commitment, right? It depends. It depends how much stuff your lineage has got going on, right? Me, I had a lot. My lineage had a lot of stuff, because I mean, there's all these like, you know, colonizers, conquerors, wars, and all this other stuff going on in my lineage. So all kinds of things, right? And so there was a lot to explore. And so I'm really grateful that I got to heal that deep stuff because it was so important. Number four, get healing assistance. Number five, create space for healing. And this is where I talked about creating your altar and really having a daily ritual and, exploring your ancestral expression, that kind of thing. And the number six, honor and express gratitude to your ancestors. So those are super, super important. And I see here Sarah Lynn is saying, yes, you must first heal yourself before you can help anyone else. Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to add to that too, is that, because one thing I see a lot of light workers do is that they don't show up because they say, oh, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfectly healed. I'm not perfectly like embodied. And the truth is, although I do not recommend, providing services when you've got a lot of stuff, a lot of unhealed trauma, a lot of pain that is still oozing from your energy field, right? Do your work on that first before you actually show up in service, right? But that said, you do not need to be perfect in order to show up and be of service. Like as long as you have already garnered that wisdom and are really, you have some wisdom to share, then it's time, right? Okay. So I'm seeing a question here. What about boundaries with family trauma healing so it doesn't completely take over your life? Well, it won't completely take over your life if you, as part of doing your inner work, are an empowered empath instead of a disempowered empath. A disempowered empath is going to take on everyone's crap. They're going to take on everyone's crap. They're going to like all the projections, all the unhealed stuff. And that is why I talked about number one and number two, doing your deeper inner work. Because if you yourself are highly triggered and you're still in this like sponge state of, I'm just going to accept everyone's energy because I feel responsible for it, that is where you need to start healing, because you are not responsible for anyone's energy except your own. Except your own. So if you're still in this space of like, I'm receiving everyone's energy and now I'm getting like overwhelmed, then do your empowered empath tools and, apply them, right? And don't take on everyone's energy. That's really, really important. Zachary's saying, the teacher always shows up when the student is ready. Absolutely. And I'm seeing another comment here. I have lots of work to do and I have been crying because I wish I had a good friend to help me with this. Well, you can have a good friend for sure. But like, as I said, number four, get healing assistance. And you can definitely get that from friends. But if you got some deep, deep work, like trauma clearing work, see a practitioner. Like that is not something to put on your friends. Okay, like you can share, but if you say solve my trauma for me to your friend, that's not, the right way is to approach someone who is skilled in working with this stuff, right? So make sure you start researching into that and looking into that for you. Okay. Here's another good question. Is there a way to keep negative ancestral energy and guidance from you? So, beginning first, that's a good question because actually, this is something that a lot of light workers should be more aware of because a lot of light workers are still in this whole like, I accept all the energy, and it's like, no, you don't. Don't do that, right? Because not all energy is of light. They're not all of light. So, Ash Pie asks that question, about the whole negative ancestral energy thing because not all of your ancestors were of light. Okay. Um, and so I've noticed that with some light workers I've dealt with, and the whole thing is when you want to clear that out, right? Because there are some and I'm just going to speak into this briefly because this could be a whole can of worms in itself, but because there are certain like cultures that I've either experienced myself or I've noticed with my clients where there's a lot of this belief around curses, and although that may be around or there, know this, that you are more powerful than any curse. And any curse only has power over you if you believe in that curse. Okay? So, where we're at now in the new earth and where we're entering, no one has power over you unless you give it to them. I mean, that's always the case anyway. But even now, more so in this new earth experience that we're all creating, cultivating, having, is that you call the shots. If you don't feel like having a cursed experience from your ancestors, then decide that this is not something that any longer will have power or dominion in my life or in my family's life. And I am now committing to breaking that barrier, right? So with negative ancestral energy, it's really about, yes, cultivating, empowering yourself, making sure you're clear as a vessel, making sure you're not holding a lot of trigger around either certain family members or certain belief systems or anything. Make sure you're clear with that. Make sure you're not triggered by that any longer. Because anywhere where you are triggered still is where they're going to get you, is where they're going to poke and poke and poke you, right? And that's where they can still find you, in that fear. So make sure you clear your energy first. Make sure you're clear in your energy first, that you're connecting with your energy, you're familiar with your own energy signature, you are understanding when other people's energies, and this is kind of like empath 101 partially, right? Is that, and you really are recognizing when other people's energies are coming into your field, you make a decision about this belongs to me or this does not belong to me, that kind of thing. And that is like the beginning of it. And then once you are like in that experience, then you set the intention. What is it that you want to clear? What is it that you want to create for your lineage? What is it that you want? Okay. And then align it with that experience. Another thing too is call in your team of light for some extra help here. Again, engaging them, because they will respond when you engage them, meaning ask them for help, right? So it can look like, calling on your ancestors who are of light and being like, I call you forward. I call you forward to help me. Please help me right now so that I can help our lineage break this barrier to our light or to our power, or to money or to love, right? So I hope that helped. Okay. I'm seeing someone saying, I just lit up a candle for them, not asking for anything, just giving thanks to them. Acknowledging them is important. Absolutely. All right. When you do the inquiry, here's another question. When you do the inquiry of what and why, how do you heal to release all I did was show love to myself, but I don't know how to find out, or I did or I didn't. I'm not entirely sure what you're asking here. So if you can ask it again, just be really clear about it, so I can help you with your question. Okay. That's the key, is asking, because they're waiting for you to literally ask for help. Absolutely. Yes. And so Ashpai is saying, thank you for the answer. I take hold of that. Be very clear of your own energy. Be clear on your attention. Ask Team of Light for help. And yes, and really get grounded in that. Very, very important. So any questions about this topic? And if you are just popping in, welcome. And also, we're probably going to be wrapping up really soon here. The topic today was how to be a barrier breaker for your lineage as a light worker. And so I covered what being a barrier breaker for your lineage means, why light workers right now are choosing to break these barriers for their lineage, some ways to identify if you are stepping into that role, and also 6 tips on how to break them. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if that was helpful. Let me know if you have any last questions. I can take maybe one more question, and then we'll be wrapping up this yummy episode here. Okay. Okay, how do you know after you do the inquiry about what you're holding on to, and how do you release? Okay, well, the question is, well, I understand the first part of the question. The other half is still a little confusing. How do you know after you do the inquiry about what you're holding on to? I'm guessing you're asking about how do you know after doing the inquiry that you've released it, I'm guessing is what you're asking, because you won't feel as heavy. It's not going to feel as charged up for you. It's probably not going to feel as heavy in your heart. Either you'll feel lighter in your heart, or you'll feel more grounded in your heart. You'll probably feel less scattered. And you'll probably feel some kind of peace in your heart as a result of that. Okay. All right. So I'm so glad this has been resonating for you. I've been checking out your comments. So glad this is resonating. So my challenge to you is to allow yourself to make a decision right now. If you are finding this live today, or even checking it out on replay, take this as a sign. Take this as a sign that it is your time to step up and be that barrier breaker for your lineage that you're being called to be. And know that you're not the only one doing it right now, meaning that you're not alone in all this, right? And to step up and allow yourself to experience this. So my challenge to you is make that decision. Is that something that you're feeling called to? And if so, is that something that you're going to step forward into now, And only you can decide that, right? Like, I can't tell you if that's a yes or no for you, but that's something that you get to decide on. Because one thing that you hear me say often, your power doesn't come to you because you waited for the right time or because you waited for divine timing. Your power comes to you because you claim it, you take ownership of it, you take responsibility for it, and you be intentional about your power and what you want to be experiencing in your life. Because you totally have the power to create the type of reality that you want. Because we all live in a hologram anyway, right? Even this Instagram is a hologram. And we have created a hologram where we can see each other in this hologram, right? So understand that you can create whatever matrix you want to be creating, any hologram you want to be creating for yourself. And that comes from intention, alignment, being clear with your energy, and being very purposeful with your energy. So, okay. I love this. Selena is saying, yes, feeling called to setting an expiration date. I love it. I think that expiration date point has really hit home for some of you. So awesome. I love it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, step into your power. Really allow yourself to align with what is here for you. Make empowered decisions because you are not here just like dealing with things just being thrown at you from the universe, right? You are a conscious being stepping in and creating your reality as we speak. So, as I mentioned, I do the deeper work with those one-on-one clients who have done that inner work, who are connected to their purpose, connected to their heart. They're also probably starting or interested in creating their own spiritually conscious entrepreneur business and ready for the next step. So if that sounds like you, I can help you with what that next step looks like. So DM me and let me know what your powerful purpose is, if that is something you would love support around. And in the meantime, much love, light, and power. Have a wonderful rest of your week.